I used to play football when I was younger, and then I ended up hurting my leg and ended up basically sitting at home for half a year, got into playing a lot of video games, and ever since I've been mostly spending out my free time playing different games. I got into League of Legends back in high school. Some of my school friends used to play it, and I ended up starting to play with them every now and then. By the end of high school, I was already in like top 500 or so in Europe server, and then I ended up after high school deciding that I would probably try to go pro instead of going to school for 1 year. Actually, I started when I started playing League, I used to play mid lane. I played a few years. I kind of got fed up with my jungles, and there was not that many good jungles in Finland at the time. So we had one LAN event with my friends, and I ended up going as a jungle instead because we didn't have anyone to go in jungle. And after this, I decided that this role fits me much better because it's more flexible and it has more impact on the map, and I really don't like having bad jungles in my team. Unlike a lot of jungles in Europe, I tend to be more of a team and group player nowadays. It might not transfer like in solo queue environment, but mostly in teams I'm trying to be a team player, and that's kind of the personality I describe myself, like want to portray to other people.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's put that second game to bed. I feel like we all want to either forget that or maybe think about the repercussions of that game later on. But this is now the third game of the day. It is ENCE versus Nordavind. We need to sort of dive into the sort of the bits and bobs of this game. ENCE, let's start with them, veteran. A team that I think have got promise, but let's kind of break down what they're about.
Yeah, I mean, Promise is still in the Prime League, but essentially, yeah, I like the stuff that I've seen from ENCE, but as far as I can say that, all I can really say is I like that ENCE did play really, really aggressively yesterday. That being said, they were opted into a very aggressive setup, and they didn't seem to understand how specifically they wanted to play it out. They didn't really understand the full strength of Ezreal Karma. They didn't really understand the full strength of their composition in general. They just, they wanted to fight. And I do like that. They did show heart, but they also showed that they are a team that is prone to making very, very basic mistakes. And that's not very good here because Nordavind basically won their entire game yesterday based off of punishing mistakes that Singularity were making. And we already know now that Nordavind are capable of doing that. We do want to see Nordavind do something more than that, but ultimately this is a game that I still see going one-sided. I just hope that ENCE weren't punched too hard in the face yesterday and they're still willing to take the fight to Nordavind on their terms.
Sure. I think you briefly mentioned Nordavind there, veteran. What is it about, what do you want to see from Nordavind today? Obviously, they got the win yesterday. What is it that Nordavind need to do now to step up even more so versus a team like ENCE?
I mean, I still have a lot of questions about their identity. Yesterday's draft was a little bit scuffed in that sense. It wasn't really obvious to us, and we did have a lot of questions about where they would end up playing around. Would this still be a Chrisberg team? Would this be a team that played around Mumus, who's actually had very phenomenal performances in solo queue now? This ended up being a team that almost played around Nolte, because Nolte got the first pick on Graves, and the rest of their champions weren't really carry-based champions. But again, there wasn't really time for us to see how they would play that out because Singularity took the fight straight to them, very similar to how I expect ENCE to do so today. And they punished them on overextensions. They punished them on having poor synergy. They punished them on not really being a proper team. And ENCE, it feels like ENCE will suffer the same fate today.
Right. Okay. And obviously, we recently talked about Mumus versus Nile. Then, Gilborg, what would we be expecting from that matchup?
Well, so far we've seen them just handshake things. We saw Nile play on. We've seen Mumus play the Maokai, and although Maokai did have a lot of impact in winning that game against Singularity, it's not the kind of game I want to see when I'm watching Mumus versus Nile. When I hear these two names, I'm thinking of hard time bruisers, carry players. Nile with his famous Jackson Camille. The same can be said for Mumus, Aatrox, Set, Mordecai. Is the champion where you're going in and going for beating too. But as we also mentioned, Nordavind, we still don't know their identity as of right now. Yesterday they played for their jungler, but we did have a talk with Ericsson. He said that they were were flexible to other playstyles as well. Haven't really had a chat yet with the guys from ENCE. We know that they had a very sloppy early game, made a lot of individual mistakes, and it's time for you, when you make a lot of these individual mistakes, that you can count on someone elsewhere. And I'm looking for Nilla to be that guy to count on. I want to see him in one of these carry champions. I want him to be played for Taiki, so they can actually create pressure on the map, because I missed a lot of pressure last time I watched ENCE plays. We didn't really see it down in the bot lane. They even have the famous Ezreal Karma lane. We didn't really see it in mid lane. A lot of the places of the map, they just got out-rotated and out-macroed, and I want them to have this impact through one lane, and I'm hoping to see it through Nilla.
Yeah, I think actually someone that Veteran briefly touched on, but I know, Trouble, you've kind of got a lot of history with him as a particular player. We thought that this was going to be a team that was built around Chrisberg, but it didn't seem like that was the case. Do you think that maybe that might change? Maybe we'll see more of that in the future?
Actually, we tend to talk a lot in general about Chrisberg, but I don't think he gets the spotlight he deserves. He had a very underwhelming split last split, but when I was casting him back in summer 2019, he was the shining star of the TFT lineup. And coming back in, yes, I know that there's many talented solo laners, but I felt like the ADC in the previous draft was sort of an afterthought. And even though I do know that Chrisberg likes to play the Misfortune, I know he has so many more picks. He has the Kaisers, he has the Kog'Maws, he has all these late game hyper cards that he can pull out of the bag, and his positioning is always exceptional to play on them. So even though, yes, I do like playing towards the solo lanes because the meta is shifting down the bot lane. Chrisberg is a great member to have because he can take the resources you give him and make them into gold.
Yeah, I think Veteran, we talked a lot about this yesterday, about how actually this roster isn't just a Chrisberg focused roster. What else should we be expecting from Nordavind? I think all of the individual carries, and you talked a lot about triple threat teams. I genuinely think that this team has got that kind of capability as well, right?
Yeah, potentially. Like, we do need to see a bit more from Ericsson. We did see Ericsson on the Zoe yesterday, and he's maybe the only name that we haven't properly gone ham on here. But he is representing Norway on this Norwegian team. We did see Nolte have his chance there. But maybe if we see them lean away from the Graves picks, we can actually see the triple threat of a potential triple threat team move here. I'm actually interested to see if they do all in on the Nolte aspect of it. We've only really seen Fnatic Rising play very heavily around jungle matchup, for example. Maybe this could be the second team that we see do that. Ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if they did move into Chrisberg. This is a meta where very heavy carry ADCs are heavily prioritized. Death Stance is literally everywhere. It's truly a 1v4 role now, so you'd expect it to move in naturally towards Chrisberg. But yeah, I mean, Mumus can play the carries. Ericsson has already shown a propensity to play champions that have heavy priority. There are other options here. Maybe if they keep moving on to Nolte, though, we don't necessarily have to see those options perform anything but a function that plays towards his matchup. That would be very interesting to have another one of those teams in the NLC.
Well, the draft was thrown into question yesterday. After a short break, we will dive into picks and bans and see what Nordavind bring to the table versus ENCE. We'll see you soon.
Up, we're nearly in sync, but not in step just yet. When you time that look, you know this can't be second best. It's all in the timing. There's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just a short way or the long way. Get there together in our own way. Good timing. just a short way or the long way. Get there together in our own way.
Ready to pick some bans, ladies and gentlemen. We are into ENCE versus Nordavind. The draft was slightly questioned yesterday from Nordavind, despite them getting the win. Let's see how they shift things up. There was a lot of talk about playing towards nullity. We'll see if that identity stays the same coming into this game versus ENCE. Again, these are two teams that we've already seen play, so we'll see if things have been learned, whether things have been changed, as we're going into the first ban, and it's going to be the set for ENCE.
Okay, Varus removed as well, so automatically you have to think about the Aphelios Ezreal potential trades and the Syndra. Yuumi is obviously a target at the Ezreal, but now we can think about Karma. We did see Karma represented in bans earlier today. So these are all the things I'm considering right now. I would expect to see a Syndra ban at some point. If there's an Aphelios ban, that means that I'd assume there's a plan for a potential Ezreal, or maybe they expect a first pick raids, given that we know that Nordavind love to first pick raids.
Yeah, and it's been red side Karma so far too. That's the Syndra ban coming through instead. So right now you still have the Aphelios on the table if you want to remove that too. So that just leaves the Ezreal open up for you, and you can pick away that if you want to. But there's also junglers still being left open here. Taiki, also one of the junglers, we didn't really talk about it that much in the intro, but he's also very fond of the junglers like Nidalee, like Graves. And we saw him on Skarner yesterday, which was a bit unlike him. But I'm really hopeful to see a more aggressive start from Taiki and the rest of ENCE from the get-go.
Oh, they're baiting for the Kalista here. It should be the last ban here from Nordavind. I don't see why they would let that go through. And they do. Graves has been banned.
Okay, if the Kalista gets moved though, then we're going to see a Twisted Fate pick, so I think that's fine with that.
Pick. It's a fresh first
rotation
pick. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not really that surprised about that, to be honest. I actually think Fresh is in a very, very powerful spot right now.
Does this force you to take Kalista though? Does this force a Kalista pick or from Nordavind? Because I imagine maybe Kalista would be on the cards if you were then going into a second rotation for ENCE.
Were I Nordavind, I'd be thinking more about, can I actually go Aphelios Lulu? I know I can't afford to give up Aphelios, but if I do go Lulu with the Aphelios, I'm automatically countered by the presence of the Fresh on the left. It's a very, very difficult matchup to do, especially if you're this inexperienced. But even at a high LEC level, you could see, for example, DOS bring out the Enchanter and Karma, go up against a Hook champion. Yeah, you can see how hard the mispositioning can get punished. Very interested to see the Nidalee get locked in. We talked about how aggressive their jungler can play, and this would be one of those. Instead, it's the Wukong, which I didn't expect.
And that also leaves a room for here. Oh, the Trundle actually just goes straight through. So if we're into one of these Maokai matchups, on matchups, it can actually be beneficial for Nili just to say, screw that, I'm not going to go with that one. We're actually going into a carry matchup instead. I'm extremely excited for that.
So do you go the Twisted Fate now, or do you go for a straight counter pick bot? Do you have free supports that you can afford to take through that would be good into the fresh? They have said no, they've gone with Tom. Also, this combination specifically allows them to trade really heavily on level 1 versus Kalista in a way that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, but I expect to see TF ban now.
I was about to say that I would like to see the Tom Kent now that the Thresh has been locked in together with the Kalista, because you tend to keep him safe. Like you mentioned, a little misposition from a Lulu or an Enchanter, extremely squishy. You get punished very easily. I also would have liked to see the Kalista taken away and potentially putting it together, pairing it together with a Nautilus. It would be a great way to have an engage and a counter hook, and it sort of soft counters the Thresh in the lane. It's not a bad matchup into him, but the Zoe is still open. I wouldn't mind if the Twisted Fate got taken away, but we have previously talked about ENCE playing a lot of global ultimate champions. They do have the Gangplanks, they do have the Twisted Fates. Maybe there is a Shen somewhere in the deeps in there as well. And I'm pretty sure that Veteran is a really big fan of Shen.
So the big thing to note here is that they're having to choose between whether they want to ban jungle counter picks or if they want to ban soft counter picks that would actually limit Kalista in team fights from other lanes like the TF. They have actually opted into jungle, but on red side you have a lot of options. They banned the TF themselves.
So this comes down to
Are you insane?
Yeah, but listen. The reason for this is simply not probably just because that Ericsson is not very fond of this TF, and we know that simply is a TF main.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're feeling more pressured by the pressure of simply on a Twisted Faith rather than Ericsson, who's not as comfortable on a Twisted Faith as a champion.
That would be 2 counters potential to Trundle that have been removed. The one that I immediately think of would be Ivan, but that's dependent on if you are confident that you can get priority mid, top, and bot as well. Maybe they are able to do that with this composition. Depends how confident the bot lane is on their level 1 pro-ish on the Philios Tom. You can make it very difficult for Kalista to be able to go for a 2-3 wave crash, and then it would be about jungle matchup there. But with Trundle, Kalista can afford to trade HP really, really poorly in her favor, given that you're going to have a level 2 advantage in ganks early on. So I'm not sure that they would want to go for something like that. Orianna now being hovered versus Azir, I'm really glad about the Azir pick. I actually think Azir is a really, really strong champion here.
And I'm wondering, is there any chance that we could see Nolty not swapping champions in this pick and ban phase? Is there any chance they might take the monkey straight into the jungle and try to go for a counter pick up the top lane? Because we talked about the 1v1 from Nile versus Mumus, and I think I'll be extremely sad if I don't see the counter pick here.
Nolty does play the monkey in the jungle, and that's not only in a competitive setting, he just does it for fun in the solo queue. So this is a legitimate flex pick coming in from Nordavind with this monkey here. Now they have locked in Aatrox instead. Now it's up to them. There's still a carry matchup potential. You can shake in here. We know the likes of Fiora is having a nice time into this. Claire is still available also too if they want to punish that here. But it seems like they are going to say we're playing for this bot side a bit, having a gank playing up there instead.
This is actually a really good matchup for them on top side as well. They've done really, really well in this draft. The Wukong Flex was a really good bait on the Aatrox, like Troublelink was saying. Gangplank's probably going to look to get a third wave crashed into a cheetah recall here, and then it actually becomes a pretty easy matchup for him to scale up into. However, there is potential for early trading on the team on the left on bot lane into an early Trundle rotation towards bot side. That's something that they have to look out for, because ENCE, we know that they love to play aggressive. They can take the reins in this game very, very early on with the setup that they have.
Well, I think Veteran and Goldbug, I believe you both predicted Nordavind here. Trouble, you've gone for ENCE.
Hey, easy for ENCE. Easy for ENCE. I mean,
you're ENCE. Oh, wait, so Goldbug and Trouble both ENCE here. So are you sticking to your predictions? Is everybody sticking to their predictions, or is anybody switcherooing?
This is what I like for them. I'm going to stick with it here. I'm sticking with it for the draft. I'm going to own it. I picked it. I'm going to own it.
I really think that the bot lane for ENCE is extremely strong, and they do like to play aggressive. So the Kalista Thresh is a really great tool into their hands to try and snowball their lead into the mid game. So I will stick with ENCE, but I do like the bamboozle effect that Nordavind brought into this draft.
I think the windows for team on the left are they requires far more skill than the windows for team on the right. I think team on the right is going to end up winning, and I think they are just generally better anyway.
All right, so sticking with their predictions, let's hand over to our casters, Hitbrain and Orcs. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. Hello and welcome back to game number 3 of the Nordic Championship. Orcs, we saw the flex in the Wukong there. Now, you know, Nolty, talk to me a little bit about this pick. What was his thinking in for the Wukong? Obviously, it was a flex, but what do you make of Wukong in the jungle?
I think it's an interesting one because you can take some pretty strong gank paths. Obviously, the fact that you have that level of invisibility you can use, and once you hit level 6, the ult potential is really big. You're not really going to win a fight with the Trundle early. That's not the goal plan for it, but the scaling element is pretty huge, and if you manage to get onto one of these critical backline members, it has a lot of impact. I think ultimately they picked the champion up early with the opportunity to flex. I think they prefer the gangplank on the top side, and it gives them tools to work with. I think a lot of Nordavind is based around the fact that they have the likes of the Tahm Kench, the likes of the Gangplank to facilitate these carries into the later stages of the game, because that's essentially going to be their goal here. They want to mitigate pressure coming out from ENCE, particularly this bot lane, which to me is an interesting part because last split we saw Kevo playing some Kalista in the UKLC. Despite the fact that it wasn't really as much in the meta as it is right now, he was still frequently picking that up. He was paired up with Haddo when he was on Barrage, and it is quite a bit of a mainstay champion for him. So I'm excited to see that. As was said in the desk bit, though, they definitely have smaller windows and they need to capitalize. That's a big thing with taking this Kalista. You take that champion because you want to capitalize on the strong laning phase, translate it into that early mid-game strength, and keep snowballing the game from there. And it's not like they have one of those compositions where it falls off a cliff after the early stages, but they do need to get the momentum on the Kalista.
It's been a while as well since we've seen that Tahm Kench paired up with the Aphelios. We've seen pretty much exclusively Lulu and Karma kind of in the bot lane for a little while, mainly with the Lulu. People seem to really, really like that. Obviously, it gives you insane scaling. Aphelios scales well as it is, but once you hit those kind of like 2-3 item spikes, and you got your Death Dance, you got your Runins, you got your Infinity Edge, and then a Lulu backing you up, you are literally a 1v9 machine. It's kind of insane. So it's cool to see the Tahm Kench. Obviously, the reason being is it's not about enabling him to kind of just stand with shields on and just completely wrap it out like all the abilities. It's if everything gets thrown on him, Tahm Kench gobbles him up and gets him out scot-free. So very different play style, but obviously still kind of at its core about enabling this Aphelios. The mid lane, obviously the Azir versus Orianna is a pretty standard matchup. We've seen a lot of that recently, where the Azir's kind of sprung back into the meta. Orianna's kind of like a staple mid laner, always kind of is hovering around play, especially when the likes of this Azir's up. It's that kind of almost like 4 champions that always kind of seem to pop up around the same time with each other, like the Cassiopeia, the Azir, and then the Orianna, and then occasionally the Ryze. Obviously, Ryze not so high priority at the moment, but
I think a big one as well as the Corki, and it's simply these scaling mids that are pretty safe in the mid lane. They have safety with Azir, he's got the mobility. Orianna obviously has her own shield and the ability to use her movement speed, and are just looking to contest priority and farm up to the later stages. And I think the priority aspect is the important one, because we're looking at the likes of Nolty on this Wukong. He is potentially vulnerable if he gets challenged in the jungle by the likes of the Trundle. The Trundle will just sort of beat him up in that 1v1, and ideally Nolty does want to avoid that, but he can find some opportunities to punish these immobile carries. He can also find some opportunities once he hits level 6 to really put the hurt down onto the side of ENCE.
Well, the minions have taken to the rift. We are in laning phase already. The leashes have happened, and both the junglers started up on the top side. So we could maybe see some plays towards this bot or mid. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. This top lane is an interesting one. They held that Wukong as a flex pick so they could get the gangplank here. Veteran was talking about after that third wave, getting the push in and then the cheetah recall. Have to track with us and see if he goes for that.
Now they're just seeing both junglers pathing towards that bot side of the map. We do see that ENCE have been able to get a shove out and should be looking to try and get their own bounce in this situation. Force Chrisberg and Bebop Bully to overextend, because as much as the Tahm Kench can offer safety from 1cc, if it's a long lane, that's often not enough. So you see them getting pretty close to bouncing, but they're still trying to push it in a little bit more.
Ericsson and Simply, every time we look here, they're just trading out mana, trading out abilities onto each other. Ericsson is the one with a shove though, so if needs be, he can look to roam over. That's got a crab spawning up soon, and Taiki's actually going for an invade into this blue side. Nulty's already done the buff, cleared out most of the camps, and Taiki will get priority on the river for the scuttle crab spawn, but he may just want to try and run towards the top side if he wants, because Chrisberg has to be pretty careful here. It's going to take a lot of damage. Kevo got those Ren stacks ready. The hook lands on to Bebop. That was a pretty unfavorable trade in the bot lane for Nordavind.
Turns of HP, sure, but they didn't burn any summoners, and this actually breaks the bounce that ENCE initially had. So they got it into the tower. It was going to push out. Because they tanked the minion aggro, it's actually going to push in once again.
Oh, Taiki actually getting caught out. Didn't expect two members to be sitting in that bush. And Nulty's monkey is very cheeky.
Yeah, got caught in a 1v2, and if they do find the jump on you, they can just burst you down. So we'll force them away, and it allows Nulty to take that topside scuttle. The bot one was picked up by Taiki there, so will just be a trade-off. And ENCE looking here.
We find that hook into the delayed play. Bebop has the grey health though, so he's pretty okay. See, Chrisberg does get a bit of some damage back this time. He's a little low on mana in this bot lane though, and you can see he's bleeding out pretty heavily in the CS department. Nulty looks for a gank, but that ward just outside the brush was so good for him. Saved Simply's life.
And then Taiki just helps him shove the wave in so he can get his own reset. Has the TP if he needs to get back quickly. And once again, this wave permanently pushed up. So there's not really too much threat to Chrisberg and Bebop Bully. This is honestly, as much as they're losing some CS in this scenario, it's pretty favorable. If you can just sit with the wave outside your tower and you can maintain that permanently as the scaling bot lane, you are completely happy. Because as much as Kevo and Seth may be trading heavily onto them, they're unable to actually find any kills because the Tahm Kench is a brick wall and he's not overextended enough for you to build up the Ren stacks. By the time you've used your CC, he just walks away in the tower. Grey health absorbs it, and you can see he's already backed up in HP. He has biscuits as well. Now they are finally actually letting it push out here. So this is where they could find an opportunity to punish, and Taiki is in the vicinity. So right now they should just let Chrisberg and Bebop push out. But decision gets changed. Instead, they're not wanting to capitalize on that. They're wanting to capitalize on the priority for the dragon. So not opting to punish Chrisberg as much, but they do get this objective.
Yeah, we'll be able to pick this one up. Taiki has the smite, so don't worry about that health bar. And like you said, in yesterday's games, with the passive on Trundle, you actually get a lot of health back when that dragon dies. Turn that off with the smite. They are looking for maybe something bot lane there. Nulty, he's running his way down here. They do have that Gravitum on Chrisberg, so he can look for the CC. He's going to find it. Steph has to flash away as he gets gobbled up by Bebop Bully, and in comes Nulty for first blood. Kevo's been slowed by the exhaust and the tongue lash as Nulty's looking for the kill. Chrisberg secures it, and Nordavind pull off a clean gank bot lane, and they'll be rewarded with some plates as well.
Great timing there from Nulty. You can see that after all that time of having the wave outside their tower, finally Nordavind had a built-up wave. They wanted to crush it. Nulty's job was just to show bot lane, secure that they could get the wave into the tower, but Kevo and Seth made a mistake. They decided to contest it. They weren't happy with the situation, and the end result is Nulty is there to capitalize. It's like we're having a replay, bit of a struggle on it. But yeah, so essentially Kevo and Seth step up, try and contest the fight, backfires massively, 2 nice kills over, and this is from the Kalista lane.
Almost something. We tried to go to the replay just as Ericsson looks to trade onto Simply. Thought he had the kill pressure there for a moment. Doesn't have it, but top lane, Nilly and Mumus having a bit of a fight off the cannon barrage. Doing a little bit of work for Mumus. Mumus has flash. Nilly's ultimate's just about to time out, so some of that lifesteal will be falling off. That was pretty scrappy in the top lane.
Definitely getting close there, but ultimately this does favor ENCE, because trading those ultimates, not only is Aatrox's ultimate lower cooldown, it's also less impact on the map. The cannon barrage is a big tool for any team who has access to it. It not being available is obviously a bit of a hit. Now, do you see Mumus trying to get some vision control and then moving up to catch this wave? Herald is coming up shortly, so we are seeing bot wave was pushed in, top wave was pushed in. This is perfect opportunity for ENCE to make a swap in this situation. And we'll see that coming out here. So Nordavind will be a little bit behind on this because they didn't have the priority in bot or top lane. You can see right now, Chrisberg and Bebop Bully just looking to push this wave out. so they can match the swap up to the top side. Well, actually, if they're walking here, they may actually choose not to. Maybe just get in the cover with a bit of vision. But this tower is quite low. They might
with the two plates they took earlier, and they actually chunked it pretty heavily.
And look at these
Crispberg's gun combination. He has the I will kill your towers gun combo. He's got another wave pulling in. Look where they hold the caster minions just out of range from the tower to make sure that they don't start tanking the tower too early, so they have the biggest wave possible. Nilly has to be very careful from Crispberg and Bebop. They will look to take this plate. Taiki, Kevo, and Steph will get the early start onto the Herald, but already one of the plates has fallen off here for Nordavind, and they're going to step back. Nilly's doing a good job to dissuade them. Cannon Barrage not available on Mumus for a fair amount of time still. Well, Nilly does have his, so if a dive comes through, it might be a little harder than it looks.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway here is that Nulty isn't really interacting at all with this situation. He's only now pathing towards the bot side of the map. Fortunately, it looks like ENCE not really putting the pressure on either.
Yeah, Crispberg's going to get some time up. Does do some damage to Nilly. Got a lot of extra chakras to work with, and this tower is getting chunked. Nilly's now going to dash away as Nulty looks to come in, has that Cyclone, holds it as Nilly flashes away. Nulty's not going to find his opening there. And they've only just started to push in the top lane, so it looks like the tower race will be won by Nordavind.
By a mile. Cannon Barrage is coming up soon as well, so Mumus can use that tool to clear the way for the second push. But Bebop Bully has already reset, and he's heading over just to provide some extra defense on that top side tower. Ultimately, a little bit slow, both these teams. Taiki opted to hand the blue over to Simply, and Nulty was just clearing his top side jungle before committing to the tower. It seems like they both sort of hand shook on that one, that they weren't going to sort of rush to take this tower down. But Nordavind, they have those 2 kill advantages. They got the first tower. They're 1,500 gold ahead. And considering they're against the team with the Callista, that's a good spot for them to be in. But ENCE, a little bit concerning.
Yeah, a little bit. Simply's actually gone for the Tear of the Goddess, so a later spike, but a bigger spike for him once that's fully stacked and he's got his Archangels, double shields. Means he'll be nice and safe and also has a little bit more AP. Ericsson goes for the Lost Chapter, and he is going in for the Stinger, so we'll see that Nash's Tooth come through as his first item. Not what we saw in our last game. We saw the Banshees come through second, but looks like the attention towards this Mountain Drake is where the focus from a lot of these teams is starting to break out. We do take stock. The build towards this finished off onto Kevo with the tier 2 boots, which means that's that longer hop with the upgrade from the Martial Poise. Bebop knows where Nilly is. Nilly's looking for the knockup, finds himself the Infernal Chains, and that is Bebop getting pulled back in. He's looking to put some distance. The Graviton comes through. They've got the Cannon Barrage. The Lantern's been thrown out, and that is a massive Moonlight Vigil. They're going to use the ulti from Kevo, and that's an easy turnaround. Ericsson finds the kill. Nulty looks to chase forward. The Cyclone not available yet, but a 2-man Shockwave comes through, and Bebop Bully is on the flank. He didn't have anyone inside with him. Crispberg looks to pin people down with the Graviton, and now Nulty comes in, finds himself the Cyclone. A little bit of a questionable play there by Bebop, but it doesn't bite him too hard. Nordavind go up in the fight, get themselves their 2 kills, and they're going to get the Dragon as their response.
Ultimately, a little bit messy there. You could see ENCE going for the engage on the Tahm Kench. Not ultimately the best option for them. He is tanky enough to buy time, and Nordavind instantly respond. And yeah, a little bit of a mistake from Bebop Bully, but he doesn't get punished too hard. So we'll see the replay here. And again, Bebop doesn't quite have his flash, but he has the great health. And the targets hitting him aren't really doing that much damage to him. Kevo only joining the fight towards the end. And by that point, the 2 TPs are being channeled, and ENCE are already choosing to back away. So very quickly turned into a lost fight. The Shockwave was nice, but again, no follow-up. And you can see this entire fight, Kevo barely gets a chance to auto-attack anyone. Only really Bebop Bully at the end. Oh.
There we go. We are looking at a Infernal Soul here in this game, second one of the day. We will take a little bit of poke from Crispberg. Crispberg hasn't finished off his Infinity Edge yet, but still doing a buttload of damage, nearly getting chunked out. And again, Crispberg picks up the perfect weapon combo for tower taking, so
and
have to be careful about that. They rotate their bot side up towards Crispberg and Bebop.
We're speaking of tower taking as well. Just having the AD from the Infinity Edge and then attack speed is sort of optimal for that. He's got the Berserker Greaves, he's got the dagger, he's got the BF sword and the pickaxe. That is optimal tower taking items. You often see them back in the days where Tristana was that big tower taker for a lot of teams. That is all you need to start chunking them down. So obviously not combat ready right as of yet. Still can do a fair amount of damage, but really looking for the later stages to come online. But for now, he's happy just to chunk away at those plates. He's going for the reset here, though. We can see the gold difference in front of her, and it's just in front of us, and it's across the board. Everyone on Nordavind, bar the support, has got, in some places, a very marginal gold lead, but in other areas, particularly jungle and mid, there is a 600 gold lead. So not super significant, but it amounts to about 2,500 in favor of Nordavind. So they're in a pretty steady spot right now.
Mummus just on the wave here for the moment. Did a fair amount of damage to Nilly. He did pick up that Executioner's Calling as his first buy on the base, so it'll do a fair amount of damage and kind of negate Nilly's sustain in these kind of longer trades.
That's a critical thing. With Gangplank, you want to go for the short trades, use your Trial by Fire, get your Grass proc off that you've already stacked up, use your Parlay, disengage. Whereas Nilly is more about those extended trades. But obviously with the reduction in his healing, does limit him a fair amount.
Well, you get a little bit of damage onto this turret. You can see for the Rift Herald will be spawning up fairly soon. Mummus and Ericsson, two strongest wave clearers on the team currently. Just go to mid lane, shove that wave in really hard, and that will afford them the space to take this Rift Herald.
Nordavind are actually making a decision here to sacrifice pressure bot lane. We could see Mummus use a cannon barrage to clear the wave out now, but I think he's saving it for the potential fight. They don't have TP on Mummus, which is why they brought him over here to assist. They want to contest this. They will get it. Will ENCE look for a fight?
They look for the pillar onto Bebop. Nulty has got the clone available. Teleport coming in on the flank. Nulty actually gets caught out by the pillar. Nilly comes through onto that flank. Ericsson's not in the fight yet. The cannon barrage is there. Bebop uses his thingy, but a massive shockwave is just so big. Not going to do too much there. Ericsson throws out the ultimate, but he's going to get chased down by Taiki. Great pillar to interrupt as well. Ericsson has nowhere to go. He does have that flash if he needs to use it. The Kevo was to cure the kill. Shockwave by Simply was just perfect.
And ENCE just corral them in, find the flank from Nilly, and it did look like it was going to go a bit in favor of Nordavind until that shockwave came in from Simply. Really just set things in their favor. And the question you got to ask is, where is Mummus? Mummus literally roamed up to be there for the Herald fight and then walked away before the fight even started. Seems like there was a bit of a miscommunication in that situation. Maybe he thought the rest of his teammates were going to be able to disengage. The end result is his team go down. That's 4 kills over the side of ENCE, and they get that mid tower. So we saw them have a little bit of a rough start to this game, but finally gonna get some momentum. But Nordavind are looking to answer back with the Herald.
Yeah, the resets are coming in from that last fight, and so they're having to step up. They're going to chunk out outside tower. Chrisberg's caught out by the pillar. The shockwave is gobbled up by Bebop to make sure Chrisberg holds his life. As Nilly gets chunked, the Moonlight Vigil will spread onto a couple of members. They're simply also getting chunked. You've got the Infernal Drake spawning up in 4 seconds time. Shockwave down, Subjugate coming up. They don't have the Fate's Cool on Kevo though. And Nulty just about to get his Cyclone. This is going to be a big fight. The barrels have already been placed down. Taiki uses the pillar to slow and make an opening. Nilly uses the World Ender, trying to heal up, but he's already getting chunked. Nulty's in the pit. He's so low. Taiki is going to have to try and make his way out, though. Look at the health bars on both sides. It's a complete whitewash, but everybody's going to step away. Nordavind happy with the dragon, happy with the fight. They're going to step off. ENCE kind of left wanting.
Yeah, didn't have the HP on Nilly in that situation, didn't have any threat to the back line, and that was the important thing. Is Zia and Aphelios being untouched really just puts a thorn in your side for the side of ENCE, so they do end up backing off. They give over the dragon, but they don't lose any members, so not too bad in the situation now. They're looking for Ericsson here, but he did spot them on that control ward.
Oh, he's got caught by the shockwave. Has the ability to escape. Taiki's chasing him down. They got the blast code. Can they time it in time? He's so low. Ericsson gets his way out of there.
But unfortunate that I saw what Seth was trying to attempt, but we'll look back at the replay of the dragon fight first. So no one's able to threaten Chrisberg and Ericsson in this situation. Hook doesn't connect, and they just keep pumping out damage. Nilly's too low. Seth burns the stone plate, and then it's only really Taiki left, and he just has to back away. So this is a situation where Kevo and Simply couldn't find any footing, couldn't do any damage because their front line just wasn't able to get into position. And that's why the dragon was very favorable towards Nordavind there.
So not to push this tower and try and take it. Still fairly healthy, so don't want to get caught over greeding. Mumma's actually looking just to hold the wave here for a little bit.
I mean, I think that's a big thing with this game is despite the fact that ENCE have pulled it back, despite the fact that ENCE are looking like in a better spot than they were in the early game, this is still Nordavind favored. They've taken 2 dragons, so the dragon soul is delayed heavily. And on top of that, they have these strong scaling elements that are going fairly well. They have 2 items on this Aphelios, nearly got 2 on the Azir. They don't have to try and push down these towers. They just have to mitigate the pressure from ENCE, and they'll be able to get a strong foothold in this game. It's ENCE who need to set the tempo. They need to start things up. Now, Baron's going to be up in a minute, but it's very difficult to take the Baron against the Gangplank. The fact that he can just drop that ult and shred your entire team. So they might have to be a little bit creative about how they find pressure here.
Chrisberg feeling fruity. He's got the Hurricane and the Infinity Edge. Gonna stack up his gun for the moment, and Nilly is just getting melted by Chrisberg's. So a bit of a collapse is coming in. They know that Nolty's about. He's gonna get caught by the Death Sentence. Plays there. Cyclone's going to get used. Bebop will be the get out of jail safeguard here. Nolte against Cyclones gets ignited, and Bebop gobbles him up. A great pillar! Forces the flash away. In comes Chrisberg, though. The cannon barrage has been used, and Ericsson. Yeah, that was a bit of a goofy combo by Ericsson.
I think he wanted to go for the Orianna, and as soon as the Orianna flashed away, he knew he was at threat from a shockwave, so he just flashed back. Looking for Mummas.
Good flash by Mummas.
Just a very scrappy game right now. Both teams trying to force and find advantages. So many summoners burned in that passage of play. 4 flashes from Nordavind there, whereas only 1 from ENCE. So ENCE definitely coming out ahead in that regard. And that could be important. If we see a fight for this next dragon, we see a fight for the Baron, Nordavind will be down those critical summoners for all but 1 of their members.
I'm going to be honest, though. It looked like Ericsson pressed all the right buttons in the wrong combination there. That's what happened with that play. Just did not work for him. Did not sink it in. And Chrisberg was never able to get into the fight in time, so...
I mean, I don't think he was trying to... I think flash ult in there, you just die. So I don't think he wanted to flash then ult. I think he ulted, and then when Simply flashed, he was like, okay, I'm not in a good spot here. And you have to flash the shockwave that's coming. He flashed it early, so he didn't take any damage from the dissonance.
Nilly's looking here for Mummas. Mummas is going to miss out on the barrel chain, and a couple of members closing in. They do have that Abyssal Voyage onto Bebop. Nilly, thinking the better of it, is going to just peel away for the moment. That dragon's coming up in 40 seconds. A death there would be catastrophic to end.
Nordavind kind of just playing the A-round game, ignoring that wave in the side lane. They are not sending Ericsson to pick it up. And they do have Mummas pushing the top lane, so this will be slightly favorable to Nordavind, just the timing of the waves. But it does give ENCE an opportunity to push mid in and rotate to contest this dragon control. So Nordavind a little bit late on handling their side waves, I feel. They need to get an opportunity to group up again to contest this.
All spotted out by the Scryers. Mummas is going for the base, wants to just get something picked up. And closing in a good pillar onto Nolte. He is just going to use his clone. The hook goes a little bit wide from Seth. Actually, it looks like ENCE are just going to get this Infernal Drake. Nordavind were not in the position to contest it, so they're just going to give it up. 2 dragons apiece to these teams.
And that was purely down to the side lanes. So ENCE had their side lanes shoved in. Nordavind had to answer and shove them out. And sure, that now means the pressure is here, but they're in position to pick it up. So actually super in favor of ENCE there. You can see Aatrox grabbing that wave in the bot lane. Kallista's going top for that wave. So they handled things perfectly. Their waves set up in advance, so they were the ones who came out ahead. Nordavind end up shoving the waves out essentially for nothing there because they lose the dragon anyway, so... better wave management from the Finnish side.
Absolutely. There are 2 members hanging around this bot side, though. Nilly has to be a little careful. Could get collapsed on. He's trying to go for the recall as Mummus is closing in. We do have Nolty there. Now Nilly maybe realizing the folly of his ways. Teleport's being used by Simply to try and join. Nilly's going to pop the world end. He's going to try and 1v2 to survive as long as possible. Simply and Taiki coming in. They use that Cyclone into the Shockwave. Catches out onto Mummus, and Mummus will fall. Simply's the one to secure the kill. Taiki can't chase onto Nolty anymore as Ericsson makes his way down, and ENCE, they just got a really good read on Nordavind at the moment.
Yeah, they commit to that play, but not that heavily. They could have TP'd Ericsson in that situation. They opted not to, and it feels like it's one of those plays where you're like, oh, we see someone, let's go chase the kill. They don't do the setup, they don't do the preparation, and ENCE are there to react. They take down Mummus, and now they're moving towards the Baron. Remember, Kalista on their team makes it a very easy take, and on top of that, no cannon barrage to threaten them. So ENCE want to look to try and bait here, see if anyone steps up, and Nordavind are trying to play it slowly.
Yeah, they're down their Scryer, though. They will spot out Seth, though. Chrisberg looks to hunt him down. Look at the vision. Nolty. Cyclone's still not available. Neither is his flash. Chrisberg wants to get this red buff, and that pillar might just cost him his life. Chrisberg in the middle, though. Bebop gets gobbled up. They do get the hook onto him. Chrisberg still full health. Good shockwave. Catches onto Nolty, though. Nolty uses the clone to get out. Chrisberg remains untouched in the fight, but Nilly now looks to come in. They find the stun. The King Zone quite there, but it's not enough to do too much for the moment. And now it looks like Nordavind are looking to turn the fight around. Mummus trying to find the barrels, trying to find the opening, but he can't get anything. Nordavind do a good job to protect their AD carry there, but they do lose their support.
Yeah, a hard spot there for ENCE to fight. Realistically, they can't push in deep enough to challenge Chrisberg. He has the turret at his back. He has the Azir there to facilitate him. So they get the kill onto Bebop Bully, and there's no way they can commit any further to contest this backline. So it was ultimately, it's favorable for the side of ENCE, but they do give up a lot of pressure. You can see Nordavind now going to shove out, real to clear some vision. But it was still 1-0 in terms of kills towards the side of ENCE.
25 minutes on the clock. The gold is very, very close. Literally 200 gold separating these teams. Definitely the closest game I think we've had of the NLC in general. I would actually love to see the gold graph in this game, to see the kind of ups and downs so far. Chrisberg building towards his
it is.
dance, and you can see it. So for the most part, it has been ENCE favored. Sorry, Nordavind.
You mean Nordavind favored? I was about to say.
It's the pink and the blue throwing me off.
The game has, in fairness, has been a lot slower, but we do have a dragon spawning up in a minute, and whoever grabs this will have that soul point, so 1 away. Puts the pressure on. Chrisberg definitely quite a bit ahead in gold compared to everyone, in honesty, but now they're looking for Ericsson.
Yeah, Ericsson is able to get his way out of there. That pillar looked a little hairy. He's able to put the distance down. 1 minute until Infernal Soul. Baron Nashor is up, and like you said earlier, Orcs, with the Kalista, they are going to melt through that Baron if you leave them alone to give them the opportunity to do it. And I just want to highlight the wards right now. The vision around Baron is very much favored towards ENCE. They got a pink in the pit. They got a few pinks leading up throughout the river. There's not too many aggressive wards within the red side jungle, but even so, Nordavind now going to have to step forward and try and clear out this vision. And this may just give ENCE the opportunity to now go get control of that dragon pit.
Yeah, in theory, but they're actually concerned about Baron being started by Nordavind, so they have to check up in return. Remember, Azir Aphelios is a fast Baron, and now here's the play. They zone them off. They get a better route. They force them back to this mid tower with the wave priority, and now they can rotate over the dragon. Nordavind have to push up a response, and they won't dare face check in the Orianna. They will start to move over the Baron and threaten this one, though. And I think they just have to start it because, yeah, Taiki's on the dragon. They have to pull him away.
This isn't a trade for Soul for Dragon. This is just an Infernal for Nashor. Ericsson on that flank. Look for the shockwave from Simply. He's been so on point. Hook lands onto Mummus. Nolty looks to come in onto the side. Ericsson instantly gets chunked out. Nolty spinning around in a pit. Seth goes in. Tries to find himself that little opening. Ericsson slides forward. Is going to get himself one. There's a shutdown picked up onto one already. Ericsson is just melting through the members. Nordavind are running away with the fight. Mummus with a double kill. And Bebop looks to chase for more. They can't quite get it. And now it's just back to Baron for the side of Nordavind.
And Taiki probably just going to take the dragon as a consolation prize. Don't think he's going to risk trying to contest this one. Going to heal up a little bit from the camps and head straight over. Nordavind are able to take this one fairly easily. They can just share the tank and they have a lot of DPS between those three. And particularly just the Azir enough. And felt like the fight, even at a point, could have got a bit ENCE favored, but ultimately Nordavind able to answer back. We'll have the replay. I think we can critically just watch the position of Kevo here because he ends up dying fairly early on into this. And I think Nulti gets a lot of value out of this ult here.
I did see that shockwave.
The shockwave's good, but then Mummies just flashes on a Kevo and he ends up kiting into Nordavind. I think is the critical issue there. And as soon as they lose the Kalista, the Orianna shockwave is down. They don't have the momentum to finish the fight. Even with the Philios gone, Ericsson and Mummies just have enough sustained damage to carry through. And this is what we're talking about. Nordavind scaling to the later stages of the game. Azir and Gangplank really coming online.
Chrisberg needs to be careful. Bebop's not there to get him out. He burnt heal to get out of that one. Needed the movement speed.
Better heal than being in the flash, which will be up soon. So it's not a great situation, but definitely could be worse. You do see Ericsson just finishing off that Leandri, so even more sustained damage now. You have the Baron to work with. You can see Mummies pushing up the top side, but they don't quite have a mid-wave available yet.
Question for me is, what can Nordavind get with this Baron? One away for Soul for ENCE, and simply looks to come over the wall. The shockwave lands onto Chrisberg. Instantly, Bebop gobbles him up, though, to avoid the damage. It's a good attempt for ENCE. Didn't result in any kills, though.
I mean, the problem is, that's obviously the worst case scenario, is that the Tahm Kench eats the Aphelios straight out of it. But even if the Tahm Kench gets caught in it, he can still just eat the Aphelios after. The only situation that works well is that Tahm Kench is far away, and ultimately Bebop Bully is sticking very close to Chrisberg right now. So an ambitious attempt doesn't pay off, and now this tower is forfeit.
Yeah, Chrisberg, perfect item combination. Gun combination, sorry. He's going to be able to cut through these towers so quick. Villa separates Chrisberg from the team, but can't really get much more there for the moment. Does have ultimate coming up on Simply soon, though. So big shockwave could...
The problem is at this
turn the tides here. That tower will crumble though, and Nordavind pushing up in the mid, pushing up in the bot lane, and they're a little scattered, feel a little lost on what to do. They're just gonna have to forfeit that inhibitor. They do find themselves a hook onto Bebop, but there's no real way to sink that damage in, so the inhibitor's gonna fall, and Chrisberg just mincing through Simply's health bar with the Infernum. Big barrel chain, actually. Taiki getting chunked out by Ericsson and the Sand Soldiers. Nordavind looking to siege up a little bit more in this top lane. They've got the waves pushing up in that bot side. Hook does land on to Nulti, but Nulti just gets gobbled up by Bebop. So the power of this Tahm Kench kind of undoes the pick.
Keeps them safe, and they've earned a lot of gold there. They cut through those towers. They're able to reset and spend. Don't need to over push and potentially risk something. Baron now timed out, so they'll be looking towards that dragon in 2 minutes. It's Soul for ENCE, so Nordavind want to deny that, and they don't even want to risk a 50-50. They want to ensure that they are the ones who are able to take that with no chance of any recourse. So now they'll just get their resets off, get a couple of buys in. You now see that Bebop Bully has a locket and a redemption, so a lot of protection for Chrisberg. And this is my big concern here, is who can really challenge Chrisberg? Because Taiki just doesn't do enough damage. Nilly, it's a struggle for him to get close and kill him because Chrisberg does so much damage to him, and there's the peel of Bebop Bully. The shockwaves, sure, but he has the resistance from the Death Stance and the extra shielding coming in from Bebop Bully. It's a big ask, and you can see how the gold has been a bit up and down, but consistently it's Nordavind who on average have been ahead. And finally, after this Baron play, they've got a sizable lead.
The crazy thing is when we looked at that earlier, it didn't look so big, because obviously the gold leads weren't as large, so the graph was naturally smaller. Now, the gold lead has grown to a point where this gold lead now just looks so much bigger for the side of Nordavind. They've got that lead. The Infernal Soul is spawning up in a minute, so for ENCE, that is a potential condition for them to pick that up. However, they can lose it. It doesn't mean that Nordavind will get soul either. So it's not the end of the world if they lose this dragon, but it would be a really, really big pickup for them. The amount of damage that Simply is doing, if he can get that Infernal Soul, he could potentially start one-shotting these squishier members.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it's enough. I mean, the problem is... Oh, Engage coming in.
Yeah, they're just going to use the Lantern to get him out. Nulty was waiting around in the wings there. Bebop's used the ultimate now, so the Abyssal Voyage has been used.
It was a weird solo tumult, but I guess they were hoping no one was present. But I think the thing to look at before this fight is the items on Crispig. 4 full items. Now has a Phantom Dancer. Infernal Soul's nice, but I'm not even sure that's enough to deal with that. We need a huge shockwave on multiple members if ENCE are going to find a win here, or Nilly needs to have the team fight of his life. Nordavind going to start with the dragon.
Done it a few times over. They don't have the vision to work with, and Simply and Nilly are both in this mid lane. It looks like they're just going to give up the dragon for the moment. It will fall down. 1 away for Nordavind, 1 away for ENCE. We are dead even on these Infernal Drakes. 2 apiece.
I think especially as well, taking the dragon is particularly easy on the Infernal map. The walls of the dragon pit are reduced, so there's even more space to navigate. Shockwave could come in.
Simply finds a 2-man Shockwave. Ericsson gets absolutely crushed through. Nilly pops the World Ender. This looks for the team fight. The flash forward by Nilly. Pulled out by the Emperor's Divide, but the Infernal Chain's calling back in. Ericsson finds himself a killing spree and a double kill to turn it around. A great start by ENCE, but the response from Nordavind is flawless. And now they get Baron.
And Crispig's untouched. That's the critical thing. He doesn't get caught in the shockwave. He has the ideal weapons to shred this front line, and he decimates Nilly and Taiki. You can even see Nulty nearly went down, but the locket from Bebop Bully and the heal from Crispig was enough to save him. So watch Nulty here. Look how low he is. He gets ulted by the Trundle, but the heal and locket come in to save him, and that's just enough to keep him alive. And then Crispig, untouched here, just starts shredding through them.
And all Kevo did was miss 1 Q. That was all he offered to that team fight. So if I think he was in better position, that could have been a kill. That could have been the opening they needed to deny Nordavind. But it felt like it was a little scattered as far as the team coordination on that what goes. And now it's cost them pretty hard. They've lost the dragon earlier. Now they've lost themselves Baron once again. Simply is able to cut through these waves without the Baron buff fairly quickly. So supers won't be too much of an issue. And he does have that shockwave again. He's got a lot of core AP to work with here on this Orianna.
They're fishing once
again.
again.
Looking to come in. They're looking for that opening, looking for that fight. Ericsson slows them down, though, with the advance of the soldiers. And Crispig throws out a big Graviton ult. Will catch 4 members. Ericsson sets up the Sand Soldiers. Taiki just gets chunked by Ericsson.
I got baited so hard because I thought he has the Infernum and the Graviton, and I thought he was using the Infernum and he was going to pop them. And then it just ends up rooting them. Not quite as dramatic, but still putting the pressure down. And they're pushing up to this tower. ENCE are trying to fish for a big shockwave here. The Nordavind are playing respectfully. If you look at the cooldowns of Bebop Bully's items, Locket and Redemption up soon. I definitely want those available to me. And it's going to wait for the next wave. Ericsson going mid to shove that one in with the Baron. And the critical thing is ENCE can't really challenge much because they still have that Azir tower up in the bot lane. Hard to push forwards more, and Crispig feeling confident.
Finding a hook onto one, but it's not really a crucial member. Nulty pops the Cyclone for the moment. Shockwave only hits onto Bebop Bully on the backline. And look who's on that flank. Hits Ericsson. Steph will fall down to Crispig as Ericsson sends the soldiers forward. Kevo is going to get a shield off and get some space put between him and the side of Nordavind. But Nordavind have pushed inside the base. They've taken 2 inhibitors. They've got the barrels to zone. And it feels like ENCE are on their last breath right now in this game. They have to find their moment. The shockwave's still not quite up yet. Crispig does get caught underneath the tower by the Infernal Chains and will take 8 tower shots, but it's not enough. Nulty getting chunked out by Simply. Ericsson will take down the tower. The flash comes away. And ENCE are just getting melted by the members of Nordavind. The inhibitor, the Nexus is being focused on 3-man shockwave. It's too little. It's too late. ENCE are just going to be taken out. Nordavind closed the game in 37 minutes.
Wasn't decisive, but they do get the victory in the end, and the burden was really there onto the side of ENCE. ENCE had to look for the momentum in that one. They never found it, and I think the critical takeaway was Nordavind were just ahead. And even when
Yeah.
there were moments where I felt like ENCE pulled it back, it just wasn't enough. You pick this Kalista Thresh, then you want to win bot lane. They ended up getting caught out by that good, it wasn't even meant to be a gank from Nulti. Nulti was going there to cover them just so they could push the wave in. They end up trying to contest it. It backfires, and from then on out, they never had a grip on the game. And I think it's really not specifically down to Kevo and the Kalista, but if you watch those team fights, he was so behind, he could just never do anything. I mean, we talked a bit about it last game, about how the Sivir was unable to get the auto attacks, but at least you can press R and be useful. The Kalista's just standing there watching the team fight go by, and Crispig on the meanwhile just decimated everything.
It really did feel like Kevo wasn't offering a lot to those team fights, unfortunately. It's sad, but you know, for them, there was some good shockwaves by Simply, some whiffed ones, frankly, as well. But I don't feel like Simply was really an issue in that game. I think he actually had a pretty good showing, but Ericsson on the Azir was just more. He was just so much more to deal with, because obviously with Simply, it was kind of all baked into him landing a big shockwave, and if he didn't land it, then the team fight felt just like they didn't have anything more to give. And Ericsson could just continue advancing those soldiers forward. His ultimates weren't really that impactful. It was just the core damage of the auto attacks on the soldiers, just cutting through everybody on the side of ENCE. And it's a shame for them. They do go 0-2 on the beginning of the NLC on the first week, but Nordavind, that's a really solid start for them.
Yeah, and this is that critical play I was talking about. The wave needs to be crashed for Nordavind. ENCE try to contest. Nulti is there. And suddenly that 2v2 we always talk about being so strong, the Kalista Thresh is just doomed. And these are more examples where ENCE, it's a harder to execute comp. Kevo is unable to auto attack at all here. And you can just see Crispig and Ericsson having the time of their lives, easy sailing.
Yeah, Crispig and Ericsson just played these fights so well. I also have to give big props to Bebop. Every time, like, a game-changing shockwave went down, or like a game-changing some kind of engage onto either Ericsson or onto Crispig, Bebop would just instantly gobble them. He never let them land into any danger. And this fight just shows what Ericsson was able to do from those sidelines. He slides in at the right time just to mop up the fight. Just playing so well on this Azir. It was devastating for ENCE.
And I think I'm just trying to count how many auto attacks Kevo was doing on all these replays. I'm up to about 6 at the moment. It's really not.
He missed the cue there, and he walks up and then walks away. That's all he does in this fight.
I'm not trying to really go heavy on Kevo. I'm not saying this is his fault, because the situation is he can't step up, right? He understands if he walks up to Crispig, he just dies. But the ultimate thing is that his champion needs to be enabled in the early game. We talk about these momentum champions that need to get going and have a strong start. You first pick the Thresh, you take the Kalista as well. You needed to have that strength in the bot lane, but Nordavind respond with your Philios Tom. And I think the critical thing was they never managed the wave properly. Remember talking about at the start of the game, the wave was right in front of Nordavind's tower. They chilled there. They were having a nice old time farming up. And as much as you saw them trying to pressure them, it doesn't mean anything if they're under their tower. If you're not going to dive them, it's pointless having the wave pushed up there. Get it into tower, bounce it back, threaten them with the long lane. And they chose not to do that time and time again. And the end result was they didn't punish this Aphelios enough, and he became an absolute monster. So I think a lot of takeaways in that game for ENCE. Definitely could have looked to capitalize better. I think it was a harder to execute comp, and they struggled to do so against, honestly, a pretty strong side from Nordavind.
Absolutely, and with that does mean that Nordavind go 2-0 on the first week of the NLC, so a solid start for them. But, you know, unfortunately for ENCE, it does mean it's a 0-2 week for them. Now, we still have more to go here at the Northern League Championship. We actually have one more game to go, so we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll let the analyst desk break down that game and have an interview. We'll see you in a second.
tongue. They taste like lies, but you swear we're just having fun. No, 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 no. Won't be the lonely one. Good night, baby. I'm gonna tuck you in. Told me I'm crazy too many times to win. Maybe now you'll see the light. Good night, baby. Good night. We have regrets, yes, we all do, and you buried yours, now I'll bury mine too. Oh, oh. No, 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 won't be the one to lose. Good night, baby. I'm gonna tuck you in. Told me I'm crazy too many times to win. Maybe now you'll see the light. Good night, baby. Good night. Good night, baby. I'm gonna tuck you in. How come I keep reaching, but my arms can only stretch so far before I gotta give in? And how come I keep wanting, but my heart can only stretch so far before it's gonna give.
Well, Nordavind take their second win of the NLC. It was a little bit shaky to begin with, but looked pretty convincing as the game decided to move forward. And Veteran, I'm going to bring you in for that early game. I know you having some discussion off stream about it. Talk to me about your thoughts.
Yeah, so whereas obviously Nordavind went from strength to strength this game, there was still quite clearly a fundamental misunderstanding in how they actually do want to approach their winning draft. And it was a winning draft, and not really to take too much away from them, but honestly, when you have a winning lane on top side in the first 3 levels that you know can go for bounce back and recall, and you know that you're going to be losing out on bot side, why would you opt to have your gangplank leash on top side, path towards bot, and then open yourself up for a potential fresh trundle invade off the bounce back on bot versus a better team? That will end up happening. So even though they have now got an identity, which is a really good foundation for them to develop on, they have shown that they can close out games multiple times now. This is still stuff that would make me worried for them once they go up against the BTXLs and the Fnatic Risings of the league.
But quite honestly, I want to throw it back to some contrast too, because we talk about this early game and how it could have been played better, yada yada yada. But I also feel like if we need to talk about yesterday's games too. Thank you. I'm very sorry about that one. They felt a bit locked down in the draft there. We talked about how Orianna might have fitted in better. Today, we were looking at Nolty bringing out this Wukong, and I felt like they were enabled today in this draft. It felt like it just gave them 3 winning lanes on the side of Nordavind and not really having a response to it. And it did just give them that momentum they needed to really get back into this one. Yesterday, they looked a bit uncoordinated, and I do think they still have some work to do with their Drakes. But overall, just looking from the top to bot to mid to jungle, I felt like they played much better today with their picks and in game. It was really just lining it up for Chris Buck.
And honestly, I just want to grab it from the draft because what the draft looked like to me, it was like, oh, we freaking love Crispberg and he is our carry and we're gonna play around him. You want Crispberg to be safe? You put a Tamkins right next to him. You eat that Aphelios every time he's in danger. Oh, you want some space between your ADC and the enemy team? You've got the Gangplank right there. Throw down the cannon barrage, boom. A whole terrain on fire from cannonballs that you cannot step into to try and reach the Aphelios. Have you actually reached the Aphelios and the Devourer is down? That's where the Azir comes in. He pokes the soldiers, again, puts you into arm's length, allows that Aphelios to go on to more and more damage. Basically, this was a golden spoon created by the entirety of Nordavind. And oh boy, does Crispberg do wonders when he gets fed by that golden spoon. Although I did like that Nordavind did find their identity into playing again towards that bot side, and I like seeing Crispberg sign. I have to give props to the ENCE bot lane as well because they did play the early game aggressive. Yes, it didn't pan out to be the best way possible, but I feel like also simply in the mid lane kind of kept it going for them in the mid game.
Yeah, simply in the mid lane actually had a phenomenal performance when it came to the mid to late game scenarios. Because of the function of their draft, there wasn't really many options for anyone there except for the Orianna. They were very reliant on him finding those shockwaves in mid to late, and he was able to find them, just that they weren't always able to be capitalized on by the rest of his team. But the winning fights that they got, it was all about trying to set up that Orianna ball for them. Otherwise, the rest of his team, honestly, they would struggle. They could no longer match on side lane. They could no longer really perform any other function but to deliver the Orianna ball. And once that happened, Kalista had the space to do something, and he opened up those opportunities. So really well played by him in mid to late game scenarios. I hope we see more from him, and I hope we see more from these guys. They kept fighting, they kept going, their heart's in the right place. Maybe eventually their execution will get there as well.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Nordavind. They had a really good game, much improved from yesterday as well. And I think whilst we can always make small criticisms, I genuinely think Nordavind are going from strength to strength as a roster here as well. I think everybody played particularly well. And actually, I have Ericsson again for an interview, so we're going to jump over to Ericsson and have a chat to him. Feels like it was just yesterday, Ericsson, that I was chatting. Oh, wait, it was just yesterday. Hello. I hope you're doing well. Okay, first of all, talk to me about sort of the adaptations that you made today. What was your game plan coming into this particular matchup versus ENCE?
Yeah, I mean, today we were just leveling up one level from yesterday, and we're just looking to keep evolving throughout the tournament. So, yeah, we're just taking it day by day, really.
And the analysts were talking about being sort of playing more through Crispberg. Was that the plan this time round? Weak side, Gangplank top, and just play through Crispberg?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all about shutting down their bot lane, right? So they can't really get the Kalista going, and I think we did so really well. And yeah, Kalista weren't really allowed to play this game this time around.
And in terms of looking to the future, you guys obviously ramping up in terms of power. Your next opponents, who are you playing next? I can't quite remember.
I think it's like Riddle or BTXL, I'm not sure.
Sure, I mean, either of those are obviously two top teams in the league right now. How are you guys feeling going into matchups like that in the following weeks?
Yeah, we're feeling pretty confident. I think the wind is coming for them, so they better watch out.
I'll tell you what, Ericsson, you played really well today, mate. I'll leave it at that, and I'll see you soon.
Yep, see you guys.
So, yeah, obviously looking like they're feeling pretty confident off the back of that game. I think they've still got some ground to cover to sort of challenge the likes of XL and Riddle, but they are 2-0 in the league right now. Nordavind are off to a good start. I mean, they didn't have the best performance in the Nordic Championship last time round, but this is, I mean, especially Guldbug, I know bringing you in here, this is a good start for Nordavind.
I was going to say, Nordavind has always been known for, okay, this year, that's going to be the year. This year, we're going to take it all. We got this great roster. We're just going to crush it all. Split starts, just it just flops, really. So it's really nice seeing that the Nordavind curse in an ERL region has been broken, because they has always performed on Norwegian soil. It's as soon as they got into a bit of international competition that it started to falter for them. But now we actually see that they're ready and prepared to fight for this. And I extremely like that we actually saw them evolve from yesterday to today. It's also not necessarily because they have a style that's only saying, okay, we only play through Chrisberg. It's an easy style to play, and one that could be recommended, but they also have Weisel, and they do have Ericsson, who we saw yesterday can be extremely dangerous on these sort of picks that they have ready for other teams in their pocket. So I feel like going forward, you cannot underestimate Nordavind, and I feel that teams who are going to underestimate them, if they even try to do that, they're going to pay the price for it.
Yeah, I think obviously Nordavind have still got some moves to make, but again, like we said, they're going from strength to strength here, and I'm hoping to see them grow throughout the NLC. Now, next game, after a short break, we've got coming up is Singularity versus Godsend. I think are going to be another close affair, actually, between these two teams. So after a short break, we'll dive into the details. We'll see you soon.